Ya'at Welcome back to the Native Veganarchy Oracle. Long time no see. I was busy developing my skills in other areas, as you can tell on my video portfolio. So, for today's reading, we're going to be doing a collective. Oh my god! Illustration reading! Yeah, so it's pretty chaotic already getting into this. There's already so much going on. So it looks like, because the time frame that this is going to be for, it's going to be for whenever it is that you watch this. So if you're watching it, this week, it's going to be for this week. So it's going to be a week-long illustration divination reading. Yes, that's what we're going to do here. Yeah, so we're going to get into it. I drew something beforehand, and like I said, it's looking like it might be a little bit annoying this week, whenever this week is that you're watching this. At least at the beginning. I don't know about the rest of the week, but the start of the week is probably... I mean, obviously, if it's going to be annoying at the beginning of the week, it might get better. Who knows? So, what we got here is this illustration of a person sitting, leaning out a window, and... right there. Yeah. Leaning out the window, and to the right of them, there's this four-pointed zigzag that is pointed from the east towards the west. And everything else from there is not really abstract. Anyway. Everything to the side there is abstract on the right. However, everything else is less abstract. And so that was the first thing I saw, was somebody leaning out the window wearing all blue. And the person didn't come out the way that I was envisioning them, but it's pretty close. And they are within a building that has 3 layers of granite or some sort of sediment layer, like rocks within stone. So it's like this person could live in a castle or a really old home made out of stone that is built in layers. However, it seems that this is more symbolic of a person having layers of this old traditional sediment enclosing them in this window that they're leaning out of, that is their comfort zone almost. Or perhaps breaking down a boundary, like ascension, like breaking through, having a breakthrough. And so there at the bottom, there's a green car driving from the east to the west. And it's an old car, really old car, probably from the 60s, 70s, 80s, something along those lines. Pretty old. And at the same time, I didn't really see it being important to focus on whoever was driving the car. Instead, rather, that it was an old green car specifically. And to the left of the person, you can see there's these red shadow figures. And the red shadow figures could be... I was seeing them as, like, almost dead people getting their justice beyond the grave at this point in time. And I saw these dead people as being symbolic of, since there's really just 4 there, symbolic of being the 4 directions. And it felt like, maybe I could have drawn a 5th, so maybe that could be just overall all the people on this planet who need to have justice in their death. Now, what else we got here are several books strewn about that are in different varying colors between magenta, green, and blue. And there's several books lining the top of this window. And it's not like they're necessarily on the window, but the pattern is merging there with this person. So that is the specific thing that is merging them, these books. So it's like these books are these facets of information that we have around us that are in three varying colors to just symbolize at least the three basics of differentiation, like the three colors in the spectrum, the red, green, and blue. And so going from there, we can see that tapping into the different basic facets of information is going to be very important during this week. So reading, studying, listening, just a lot of listening. That's what books are really symbolizing, taking the time to carefully look things over. And so at the same time, where I was going from that, was these shadow figures that are in red. And this red is like their blood, as if they're still alive. And they're carrying these plates of snacks. And so there's at least 4 different kinds of snacks in there. And one of them that I saw that I could draw was the, like, mochi dumplings. I don't remember what they're called, but... or steamed dumplings. Like, something like a steamed bun. And so... there's at least 2 plates there, just 2 plates. One is being held by one person, and then one is just kind of floating about in the foreground, kind of symbolizing that when we give offerings to our ancestors, we also receive whatever sort of offerings that they have to give to us. Because after all, there's a lot that our descendants are doing right now to give to us, because we are their ancestors as we speak. And there are these stars strewn about here, these yellow stars. There's at least 7, actually, 7. And I didn't even plan on drawing 7, I just drew 7. And synchronistically, it felt right to draw this sort of boardwalk, this blue sort of sidewalk, boardwalk edging down here with 7 panels or 7 segments to them. And so that is what I did, and yet I synchronistically drew 7 stars, not knowing I drew 7 stars. And lastly, there are these dots here that are on the abstract zigzag there, and they didn't need to be symmetrical, they just needed to be there. So it seemed like these dots being there were kind of symbolic of our relationship to technology, and how it doesn't have to be perfect in the way that people are, I guess, aiming to have it. As long as it's there and we have it and we're working on it, then, you know, it's fine. Yet at the same time, it's showing that there is obviously need for improvement in the right direction. Yet it's gonna need balance, because these are not balanced the way these dots are showing up. And so with that being on the eastern side facing the west, it's like, well, in order for us to make this balance with this sort of, I mean, this is symbolic of a mountain almost, these zigzags. So it's like saying the stability that we're aiming for, this majesty that we're aiming for as a species, can be had if we reconsider the balance that we need to have here at the very beginning phases for the foundation. And once we move from the foundation over to the west side, then we'll be able to have our offerings. And so, yes, there's another detail here before I tie in what the stars could actually symbolize. There's a detail up here on the top left here above these shadow figures where there's party lights. And so there's just a small string of party lights behind them. So it's like saying that even though there's all this like obscurity going on, we can still find a pocket of time near end of the week from the time that you watch this. So you know, that could explain the sort of annoyance that I was like feeling at the get-go, and then, you know, coming into the sort of opposite of an annoyance, a nice little joy. And so, yeah, it seems that you're gonna find time to still celebrate, or people are gonna find time to still celebrate. And yes, so what else we got here? These stars, I see them as being symbolic of the Great Dipper sort of constellation, and how that constellation has many different meanings to different tribes all over this planet, and it's one of the easiest constellations to see. And so there is something to that when it comes to the energy this week, where it's like, but at the same time, these yellow stars aren't really coming up that bright under the light. You can, oh, I guess you can see them quite well on the camera on the phone, but for me, right now, with my human eyes, as I look at it, they look very, very, very faint. So maybe if I do this, yeah, so that's a little bit more what they look like to me. They look a little more faint like that. So, however, yeah, here we go. I got the blue light on. All right, anyway, so yes, it's like saying that there is going to be a guiding principle when it comes to this sort of similarity we as a species all carry in terms of the information in these ancient stories around constellations, specifically the most notable constellations that we all can look up and see simultaneously. There's a lot of power in that. And that power is overlapping a little bit here with these books and this green car. So it's like saying for this week, when it comes to travel and moving forward, it's gonna be from a traditional perspective. A very traditional perspective, but not too traditional. It's gonna be traditionally modern, because we're not going back on a horse and buggy or anything like that. We're going with something that is within our perception of our humanly technological history time frame. This is traditionally modern. And so this boardwalk here is going to be, since it's only a small strip, it doesn't need to be much. It seems that as long as there's a symmetrical sort of foundation this week in terms of the steps that we take, then we'll be able to get off of this boardwalk and get into the car and move towards this plate of snacks that our ancestors has given back to us after the offerings we've been giving to them. And yeah, so and the very, very last thing here I'll say is that since we have this person peeking out the window as the main focal point, this could be symbolic of somebody you know going beyond the sort of boundaries that they have within themselves, these layers that they've kept for a long time. They're going to be peeking out of it and considering leaving the castle, so to speak, leaving this safety net, because there's this shading behind here that can kind of look like a net, to go and explore the abstract and the divine, which can be symbolic of these little dots here, these little fragments floating like stars. And yeah, and embrace the magic in creating and writing new spells. After all, these Romance languages are languages of spells. So if you look into the Latin dictionary, you'll see that. So I can see how me tapping into that is starting to affect the overall energy for the time frame that you watch this. So get into Latin, my friend, if you are a Romance language speaker, which more than likely you are, because you're here. And so what we're going to do here today is we're going to pull one single tarot card to ground the energy here. It's like a bonus. You don't have to stay and watch this if you like. Otherwise, if you want to stick around for this single tarot card, here we go. Alright, we got Page of Wands. The Page of Wands. What are we talking about here? Well, I threw the Page of Wands on top of those shadow people. So it could have something to do with more people getting in tune with the other side and getting more jovial bliss about the idea of actually helping out these injustices that have been plaguing society. So for this week, that is going to be a focal point for either you, somebody you know, or just in general. That's going to be where people are at the time of this reading. And so yes, there was a Ten of Swords on the bottom there, and Ten of Swords is symbolic of a lot of different thoughts that could be coming through all at once that are very, very heavy. So in a way that is synchronistic, you know, that I was drawn to putting it right here over these dead people, because that's a very heavy, painful energy for people to deal with. And I shuffled it and stopped at Three of Swords. So it's like, this is something that we're going to have to start to really deal with, this, because Three of Swords is symbolic of the first phase of heartbreak when it comes to the major arcana. And in the phases of the swords, because there's different variations of heartbreak in that, mainly the Three of Swords and the Ten of Swords. So Three of Swords is like it first kicking in, and then Ten of Swords is like, wow, this is just deep pain that's been going on for a long time. So it's like saying at the beginning of the week, we're going to start with the Three of Swords, with entering into the week with like dealing with this psychological mental pain. But at the end of the week, we're going to come to the Ten of Swords, and we're going to have this culmination of all these sorts of difficult problems that need to be dealt with. And we're going to find a way to transition out of the Page of Wands and ascend into the Knight, Queen, and King. So, yes, this now concludes your reading for the week. Ahehe, Gigawabaminiwa.